What's up, guys? This is my predictions video for UFC Fight Night, Demetrious Johnson versus Wilson Reis. So starting with Louis Mocha versus Tim Elliott. I think it's going to be a very good fight. This very well might be the fight of the night. Two very scrappy, exciting grapplers. Louis Mocha is very dangerous on the ground. His BJJ is very dangerous, very dynamic. He has some solid striking as well. And Tim Elliott, he's just funky. He does some weird things out there. His striking is very unorthodox. He uses very strange movement. I don't know if he's taunting his opponent or just having fun out there. It's very strange to see. It's very fun to see too. Very good wrestler, shown in the Joseph Benavidez fight. Very good grappler off his back. Very good scrambler, like you've seen when he fought Demetrious Johnson. I predict the winner will be Tim Elliott, and I think Tim Elliott is going to win by a decision, but it's going to be very close. I see Tim Elliott getting in trouble in the fight on the ground, but I see him being able to solve Louis Mocha pretty much. And then you go to Alexander Volkov versus Roy Nelson. This fight's pretty tough to pick because where Roy Nelson is in his career. This is late in his career now. He seems to be a little bit over the hill, and he's fighting a younger Alexander Volkov who was the heavyweight champion in Bellator. Alexander Volkov, very good striker. He's very hard to take down. He's extremely tall. This guy's like 6'7". I believe Roy Nelson is 6 foot. The reach difference is going to be enormous, but it also opens a big weapon for Roy Nelson. Roy Nelson has a lot of success in the heavyweight division against taller fighters because of his overhand right, which is his primary weapon. There's a clear target for the overhand right for Roy Nelson. And Alexander Volkov does get hit often. He doesn't have the best striking defense. So I can very well see Alexander Volkov winning. And if Alexander Volkov wins, I think he'll win by a decision. But I see Roy Nelson probably getting a knockout in this fight. So I'm going to predict Roy Nelson by a first round knockout. And then you go to the main card. Jacques versus Robert Whittaker. Excellent fight. Very dangerous fight for Robert Whittaker especially. Jacques, as we all know, one of the best middleweights on the planet. He's the best submission artist in the middleweight division. One of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the UFC. He has some knockout power. Doesn't throw kicks often. He's pretty good with his hands. No real footwork. He's very plodding, but he's very good at getting the takedown off counter shots and when he pressures opponents. His takedown ability, along with his submission offense and his pressure, it's very hard for anyone to deal with. Robert Whittaker is a very good striker, very young. He's learning and he's developing rapidly. I can see him giving Jacques a lot of trouble on the feet. His takedown defense is not bad, but I don't think it's enough in this fight. I'm pretty confident that Jacques will be able to take Robert Whittaker down and getting the submission or winning by ground and pound within 2 rounds. So that's my prediction for the fight. And then you go to the co-main event, Namajunas versus Michelle Waterson. Probably the most talked about fight on the card, and probably the most important fight of the card regarding rankings, because the winner of this fight is most likely going to fight the winner of Joanna and Jessica Rogge for the belt. So Namajunas, very young, 24 years old, I believe. Pretty tall for the division, pretty long. She's very fast. She has probably the best footwork in the division and also probably the most dangerous off her back. She has some very good in and out movement, Taekwondo-based striking with in and out punches. She uses punches now more than she uses kicks. If you watched her earlier in her career, she used a lot of kicks, a lot of spinning kicks, jumping kicks, very flashy. But she's toned that down a little bit and she's gotten more conventional. Also, she has more experience in the UFC than Michelle Waterson. Michelle Waterson is a bit older, a little bit small for the division. She has very good balance. She's very good with her kicks, although she uses kicks more often than punches. But Michelle Waterson, her boxing or her punches are quite static. If you watch the difference in their punches and the way they move when they strike, there's this fluidity, flowy, and athletic movement of Namajunas that Michelle Waterson doesn't really seem to have, or not quite on the same level. And I think the advantage she has in this fight would be in her wrestling. I think her wrestling might be a little bit better than Namajunas'. And she's also pretty solid on the ground herself, on top or on her back. This should be a very good fight, but I do see Namajunas winning this fight. I think Namajunas is technically better in more areas. I believe she's better in the striking. She's better with in and out movement. I believe on the ground that she is a bit better than Michelle Waterson. I think if she gets on her back, I think Michelle Waterson could be in a lot of trouble. Because when you take Namajunas down, it's not like you're out of danger now. You're probably even in a more dangerous place. And on the feet, Rose is very hard to catch. Where I see Michelle Waterson having more success is probably in the clinch and with her wrestling. But that's about it. I think all the danger and the finishing ability comes from Namajunas. So my prediction will be Namajunas by a 3rd round submission. And then you go to the main event. Demetrious Johnson versus Wilson Reis. A lot of people writing Wilson Reis off. A lot of people think Demetrious Johnson is just going to run right through him like he did everybody else. But here's the thing. I think Wilson Reis might be one of the biggest challenges to Demetrious Johnson in the whole division. And the reason I say this is because Wilson Reis is the best jiu-jitsu artist in the whole division, at least traditionally. And what he's shown in the UFC, he shows a lot of promise on the ground, a lot of dangers on the ground, off his back, or even when he gets on top. And most of Demetrious Johnson's fights go on the ground because he initiates the wrestling. As we've seen against Tim Elliott. He took Tim Elliott down, he scrambled Tim Elliott, and he got in a lot of trouble on the ground early in the fight. Wilson Reis, I believe, is a better overall grappler than Tim Elliott, and he understands the grappling much better than any of Demetrious Johnson's opponents. And he's a bit more muscle-bound than Demetrious Johnson. Although, Demetrious Johnson is the most well-rounded fighter I've ever seen in the UFC. He's so quick, he's so technical, he's so sound in almost all positions. When he versed Henry Cejudo, I thought the clinch is where Henry Cejudo was going to have the most success. I thought that he had the advantage in the clinch. Then again, Demetrious Johnson finished the fight because of the clinch. His holes probably only come when he fights a fighter and he initiates in an area where the other fighter is better than he is. But I believe Demetrious Johnson will try to keep this fight standing. I do see Demetrious Johnson winning this fight. I do see him winning by a decision or a late stoppage, TKO or submission. I believe where Demetrious Johnson will overcome this fight is because of his cardio and his 5-round experience. And I don't think Wilson Reis is ready to go 5 rounds. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be breaking down one of the fights of this weekend's card. So be on the lookout for that. And make sure you guys watch the fights. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.